Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across the internet airwaves is the doctor himself.
Hello.
What was the weird look for? That's how you're living.
I thought you misspoke. I think it was just the internet like clipping your word a bit, but I just assume you fuck up the intro, basically.
I speak perfectly and clearly all of the time.
And I defy any of you to go back through our catalog and download a bunch of episodes to find when he hasn't.
But you've got to find all of them, otherwise
you better download
science.
Every past episode.
Yeah. It's proper scientific method. That's what we preach at this podcast. As well as what we preach is every single week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you.
You're goddamn right we do.
Every goddamn week.
We're family.
Jesus. You're obsessed. It's gotten to the point where you're obsessed again. Like, it's...
Listen, you wore me down after years to do a supernatural podcast. I'm going to wear you down until we start, like, actually committing car crimes.
Not just, like, starting a podcast about Fast and the Furious?
No, we already have 2 podcasts. I don't have time for another podcast, but I do have time for, like, grapple guns and high-speed heists.
I mean, if Gal Gadot as long as she's a part of this, I'm all right. Very briefly, and then never spoken of again.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think I was, but I'm super into Michelle Rodriguez after rewatching all these movies.
Wait, hold on. Let me put this together. You're into a really aggressive woman who could kick your ass. That doesn't sound like you. A muscly woman who could beat you up and step on your throat. None of this is adding up. I don't. That doesn't make any sense.
Listen, I know I usually play my cards pretty close to the vest, but I don't mind admitting that this is doing something for me.
This is the most transparent thing I've ever heard you say. Jesus. We've got a review.
Sure.
5 stars. Number 120 from Apple Podcast USA from Irish Spud. I thought, I mean, that's kind of redundant. You could just say Irish. I'd assume potato is coming after that.
Wow. I mean, it's not racist, but it's
it's white people. You can't be wrong with it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Wait, did you say white people can't be wrong? And
no, I
said just tacitly agree.
I mean, that may have how it came out in the watch, but what I meant was it's about white people, therefore offending them can't be wrong.
Yes, I agree with that. Not what I may have agreed to before.
I mean, you've said worse things.
I have not.
Oh, really?
I defy you to go back and download every episode and find when that would have happened.
Yeah. The subject for this review is great podcast to learn comics and comic culture without awkward moments. I mean, I dare you. Go back and listen to all of the episodes.
Flawless banter. We have never missed a step. We've never lost momentum.
We've never gotten a review specifically citing you. I love how you guys don't worry about big long pauses and breaks. That's never been a review we got.
Yeah.
Daddy used to cut those out. I do not anymore.
I know. That's why I just left that pause there.
Oh, nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's not coming out. They go on to say, this is a great podcast, very knowledgeable and full of fun times. If you were ever the kid in high school who wanted to hang out with comic kids, but didn't draw or write and didn't know how to get into the crowd, this is your podcast. If you're an adult looking to get into or jump back into comics, great podcast to use. Great question and answer session. It's like Stand By Me. Your 2 Canadian guy friends bring you on a journey of comics. They teach you and include you in all the jokes. You feel like you're chilling with 2 good nerd buddies. There is a younger brother type, but just like in life, mother calls him away after you let him hang along for a bit. He leaves at episode 75, and the true show starts to glow and grow and go forward to true multiverse greatness. Grab a beer and listen and laugh along with your two new comic crew friends.
Wow.
So much was in there.
I love that. I love that this posits a world where, like, instead of wanting to hang out with like the jocks, like, man, I wish I could crack into the comic book group. Look at them sitting over there at their designated table in the cafeteria.
Oh, they're so cool.
Look at them just talking about pussy.
I mean, probably at least about eating it based on all the comics we've read.
Yeah. Yeah, they're always reading For Tomorrow.
Just over and over again. God, I wish I could be a bicycle.
Yeah, I found a copy of For Tomorrow in the woods and was passing it around.
Jerking off to the thought of somebody else eating pussy.
The thought of someone else crudely bringing up the idea of eating pussy to someone for whom, like, that will not pass.
That shall not pass.
Yeah, there's like 4 levels of cucking going on there.
No wonder they were jerking off. Am I right?
So thank you for the good review.
That's right. Thank you, Irish Spud. I much appreciated that. We are like Stand By Me. And
yeah, we also can like constantly find dead bodies.
Yeah, pussy eating is the dead body we walk through the railroad tracks to find.
I mean, I don't even really know what that metaphor means, but I'm sure it's vile.
Yeah, much like that pie eating contest in Stand By Me.
Gross.
So no news. I mean, not any real news except for there was a death.
Yeah, I know. Richard Donner, director who brought us the first Superman movie and most of the second one.
Yeah.
Passed away. I think he was 91. But Richard Donner is a legend. Not just that Christopher Reeve Superman movie, but The Omen and Lethal Weapon and The Goonies. Richard Donner is like iconic. People like Kevin Feige and Jeff Johns like began their careers like interning and like working with Richard Donner. Like, this is a guy that has a lasting impact and legacy, not just in movies but in comic books. Imagine how many people would have like watched that Superman movie, a movie that was like earnest and true, but like really like one of the first true superhero movies.
He's also he was the first director to get his own cut of a movie from a superhero movie.
Yeah, but back then you had to just mail pieces of paper that you wrote #release the Donner cut on.
There is a Donner cut though of Superman 2.
There is. It's a lot different because they just insert like unfinished things so that you're like, this is what it would have been kind of.
That's basically if they had
was it Richard Lester or someone took over?
That's just if they had released the Snyder cut the way it actually was.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowadays, he'd get a whole other movie.
He's had an impact on cinema, on comic books. He's had an impact on people demanding a director's cut.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we've seen what you get when you push for a director's cut for a superhero movie. We want it.
But yeah, so that's, 91 is a good run, but still sad.
We could only be so lucky to live that long.
I mean, maybe that's your opinion about that.
Because you're a terrorist.
That sounds like a nightmare. 9 decades? Are you kidding me?
You don't even like the 3 you've lived through. That's 3 times that.
Why is life so long?
I mean, it doesn't have to be.
I know.
Oh, I know. I know you know. been listening to
every week our listeners like open their podcast apps with bated breath. Is this the week?
Oh, is that why they get so bent out of shape whenever we're late posting an episode?
They're like, oh my god, they didn't even post the episode, they just did it off mic.
Yeah, you all should know that's not how we're gonna do it. It's gonna come up on time.
You know what, I might put it behind a paywall.
Yeah, that's the smart way to do it.
Yep, and then I'll be buried with that cash.
Oh, wait. Not even for your family or anything?
No. I'm sorry, did they set up a Patreon?
Might need it in the afterlife. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. I'm bringing a bunch of just PayPal credit in the boat on the way over to the afterlife.
Dear Lord,
I don't have any coins.
Coin?
Yeah, I can't wait to see my parents again and show them all the Dogecoin I've got.
Sorry, who is this an impression of?
Oh, sorry. I'm crossing the streams.
Is this dead you?
No, this was our cryptocurrency enthusiast Batman from last week's Patreon episode.
See, this is the type of content you're missing out on.
Yeah, you sure you don't want to take that review back, Irish Bud?
Yeah. Too bad. You can't undo it.
That's right. It's locked in now. We've said it out loud.
Yeah, you can only make bad reviews out now.
No, come on.
But we won't talk about them. So, I mean, what's the point?
We can still have them. So,
let's talk about this week's theme.
Yeah. This week, we're talking about Angor, which is it's DC's
Marvel pastiche. Villain?
It sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah. No, it's DC's Marvel pastiche. And, when it was meant to be a play on the word anger, the idea that, the DC characters were these kind of maybe a little more mythic and silly and friendly and positive ones, and the Marvel characters all had angst, and so they and people didn't trust superheroes and stuff like that in Marvel comics, so they made this world called Angor and a bunch of characters that are sort of knockoff Marvel characters, so that they could poke fun of that a little bit. But these characters keep showing up. They have a life of their own in DC now, but you get a character like Silver Sorceress instead of Scarlet Witch, or American Crusader instead of Captain America, or Tin Man or Machine Head instead of Iron Man. So there's a whole host of Marvel pastiche characters, and I think they first showed up in the 80s or something like that, and then they keep coming back. They've been in the JLI series, Justice League Europe. They've shown up in the Multiversity. They've shown up in Final Crisis. They are all over.
Though this version of these characters feels very 90s for sure.
Right. So I gave you a reading assignment for this one. Yeah. So the issue that you read, it's not 90s at all, actually.
It feels so 90s.
It's from 2009.
Wow.
It's in the countdown to Final Crisis. I gave you the first issue of Lord Havok and the Extremists. So Lord Havok is kind of like the Doctor Doom kind of character.
Yeah.
And the Extremists are a bunch of other villains from Angor, from this Earth.
Though he does feel more like what's his name, the Avengers villain, the one that was the he looks at least
he has a bit of an Ultron look.
Yes, that's the word.
Yes, you're right, absolutely.
He so I mean, let me just start by saying this book sucks.
Yeah, I mean, even I was like, I don't love this one. I tried to find their first appearance, but it's not on Comixology.
Oh,
because I wanted that one.
Yeah.
And then I was like, do I give him one of the Multiversity ones to read? And I was like, no, I've learned that lesson. But then I was like, I was running out of things.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give you the most recent one. So I was like, this one is their actual title. It's the only time they had their own title. Might as well give them the first issue of this. But yeah,
there is the problem is especially when this fucking book came up, it's such it's such trite bullshit. Like it feels like it's copying so much stuff from before. It feels kind of like The Boys a bit. Like it feels like such an unoriginal take on such a cool idea that it's just God. This was painful to read through. I'm glad it also was pretty short because overall it was. Yeah, it was a pile of shit. I didn't like the art. I didn't like the story. I don't like the characters.
So the story, very roughly, is Lord Havok is putting together the team of extremists that include Gorgon, who's kind of he's sort of like a Doc Ock type.
I thought that was a stone guy from Zelda, but
Dreamslayer is sort of like a Dormammu. Tracer is like Sabretooth. I think I'm missing one.
Dr.
Diehard, who's like Magneto. And he's putting this team together, and they're going to go up against the quote unquote heroes of the world. So at the start of this book, they show that on Angor, on Earth 8, which it was at the
Angor.
time, they had already gone through like a version of Marvel Civil War. In this case, it ended with them uniting behind a metahuman registration act, and Tin Man, the Iron Man sort of archetype, becomes president, and America Mando, or the Captain America, becomes the vice president, but he's banging a different hero's wife, and
it's so
Lord Havok kills the president, kills Tin Man on TV or something like that. It's basically, this world is coming apart. It's going very poorly, and at the end of it, this is where it ties into the events of Countdown. Kyle Rayner, Donna Troy, Jason Todd end up on that Earth, and Lord Havok thinks that they must be working with the heroes of Angor.
Yeah, the basic idea is if it's like a Handmaid's Tale type situation, where they decide that things are going so badly that they just they all the heroes unite and basically create this mutant registration act where they people who don't follow in suit basically just get fucking murked.
They get put in camps. Some of them just disappear. It's bad. It's like any other internment ever.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get it this time.
I think this time we figured out how to do internment right.
Yeah. You don't pay the internments.
But yes, unfortunately, even I going in was like, this is not a great story, but I just wanted something that would show a bunch of characters and show some of the hints at the Marvel pastiche thing. So
it's so fucking 90s. Why. It's so 90s. It's painful.
It's 2009, man.
Crazy. It's crazy that that's 2009 because it's so badly the 90s.
Do you just mean the hyper violence? What's the piece that's making you think of the 90s?
One, the art style. Two, the sort of I'm fucking my buddy's wife while he's out and I sent him away and I'm such a badass, and it's so fucking it's such cool guy porn. It's just right. Oh yeah, there's this fucking all the bad guys have to fight against the good. It feels so without substance. It's just cool for cool stakes. I'm surprised it wasn't the capital X extremists. That's what it feels like. There's just something so full of fucking corn syrup. This whole thing is. It just doesn't feel like it has an original idea. It feels like it's just playing off of energy and it just feels like fucking popcorn. It just is nothing.
Right. I mean, the one thing I will say for this is this particular version of Angor. Yeah. Even though it's technically on Earth 8, we're going to get into the kind of the differences of things because there's actually a couple of Marvel pastiche worlds.
Yeah.
But this one does feel like it's trying to riff on So Earth 8 is supposed to be this Marvel pastiche. In more recent comics, Earth 7 is supposed to be like the pastiche of like the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
Which was even Marvel going like, no, we could go darker and grittier. But I think in this story, even though it's Earth 8, I think it does have some more of that Ultimate kind of feel to it. Like, because Cap, as from just panels I see online, I think Cap in the Ultimate Universe is kind of a jackass and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So you get this Americommando in this one, and he's boning his buddy's wife or whatever, who's sent to war or something like that.
It's so mean-spirited, but without like Lobo is mean-spirited, but is like fun about it. This is just mean-spirited for no real reason. Like they're not trying to like show something specific. At least with like the boys, like they're trying to like mirror the like real world with these like heroes being sort of representation of like celebrity culture and stuff. Like this isn't even doing that. Like this is just being mean-spirited to like be a jerk. Like they're not like showing me anything. They're not like putting a mirror to anything. It's just like negative and like shitty. And it feels like a letter of hate to Marvel. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think it's very pointed that they bring up even the idea of the Civil War in the not the Civil War of Civil War in the beginning of that book. I think that's very targeted. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, where this eventually goes is that the Lord Havok like joins with Monarch. It's this fight across the multiverse. It ends up destroying Earth 51. It's part of this big kind of cataclysmic thing that's happening as we're rolling into Final Crisis and stuff like that. But they aren't always quite like that, but they're usually pretty bad. Usually when you meet you usually meet Lord Havok, who's like the Doctor Doom type, and you meet the extremists, and it's usually because they are some of the only survivors of Angor, and it's usually because they have like detonated all the nukes and destroyed their world, and then they come to in the 4 or 5 times that these characters kind of pop up in different eras, that's usually the backstory, right? So it's not like we really go to this Earth a lot for like let's have a fun romp with Marvel characters. It's like,
but that's what it could be. Like it could be like sort of this like love letter to comic books and like bringing in another like the other major comic book series and like showing what we could do with that rather than just like being like and then fucking Iron Man's like and then Captain America's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck your wife. Like it just feels like such mean-spirited like content.
Yeah, I mean this one I think feels particularly that way. I don't think most of the other ones actually feel that way. I mean, they're definitely taking a dig. They're saying like, man, your world's so angst-ridden, it could only tear itself apart. But
which is ridiculous because fucking like DC is super angsty.
Well, but not in the comics.
Other
than Batman.
But like even some of the best Superman stuff is all him being introspective and like sad.
But it's not. But it's still different, though, right? Like the Marvel thing was always like even like the heroes aren't trusted, right? Like Spider-Man is like constantly being vilified and stuff. Like it's always a curse, right? Like you got a power. It mutated you. You're a monster. Your family can't know. You're being disowned. Like the city hates you. You're the X-Men. Society hates you. Like I think that was always that thing. But like over in DC, they build the Flash Museum. They have a big Superman statue in the middle of a park in Metropolis. Sure. They fucking love them. Like,
but this isn't even
Batman at least gets a fucking signal. They're like the people in Gotham are like, we know who's looking after us.
But like this isn't even angsty. Like the story isn't angsty. Like it's just like fucking like, yeah, fucking bro. Like it's so like it's broy.
I know. Not. I mean, this particular one is just going like extreme kind of thing. But again, that's what makes me think that it's also still deliberate and that they're shitting on the ultimate Marvel thing a little bit. But
it's just like I fucking hate this like Marvel versus DC bullshit in general. So this is just like a reminder of like, oh yeah, it was even worse before.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think it's that targeted as like they want people to read it and be like, yeah, I hate Marvel. Like, I think they're just taking pot shots in the way that Marvel takes pot shots at DC and stuff. Like,
But at least like anytime I've ever engaged with it, and that's mostly just like more contemporary versions of it. But like, anytime I've ever heard Marvel do it, it's at least more clever than this. Like,
DC's usually more clever than this too, frankly. This is a bad example, but honestly, I was like, it's the first issue of the only time they've had their own series. I guess I got to go with this one.
I get why they didn't get more.
Well, yeah, fair. Yeah.
Angor. We got a lot of questions.
We did, yes.
So why don't we start trying to get into them?
Let's do it.
First question comes from Facebook.
Go to the face in the book. Go to the Facebook.
From the most interesting resident.
Oh, Stephen Marion Almagro.
Yes, when you look at the questions, it just takes all the fun away from it.
Sorry, was this supposed to be fun?
For me,
This is Angor.
pain, Angor. Stephen Marion Almagro asks, what happened to Blue Jay? They make mention to it in this book where they're like, "Whoa, what happened to Blue Jay?" But
They do talk about Blue Jay in this book. Blue Jay is a character that pops up a lot when we're talking about this world, when we're talking about Angor. So Blue Jay is meant to be sort of pastiche, a version of Ant-Man / both Ant-Man and the Wasp. So Blue Jay has the ability to shrink to not crazy small. Normally, or at the first appearance, I think he could shrink to like this big, like kind of like a few inches. And that's and he could fly and stuff, and that was his power. And Blue Jay is often he's like one of the only hero survivors of Angor, and he makes his way to like the main DC universe and meets the heroes in that. Like he's actually joined the Justice League Europe. He at one point was in the future, and he was offered a position with the Legion of Substitute Heroes. There was a running gag for a bit that his powers sucked, and it like legitimately like hurt his feelings and affected his self-esteem and stuff.
oh my god,
because it's not like he could shrink like forever or whatever. More recent version of Blue Jay that showed up in Steve Orlando and Ivan Rice's Justice League of America. He actually can shrink like the way the Atom can, because he ends up in the Prime Earth via the microverse. He shrinks so far and he ends up there, and is not sure how he got there. In some versions, Blue Jay ends up dead. I think that one that like has the self-esteem issues, that continuity, he ends up dead, but I can't remember exactly how. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure I remember what happened to the most recent version of Blue Jay. But yeah, essentially, if Lord Havok and the Extremists come to Earth because they destroyed their world and then they want to conquer this one, Blue Jay ends up there because he's like one of the last heroes standing. And but he has interacted with DC characters. He's been a hero on the DC Earth, but it's not his home. He's like one of the last survivors.
Is it Blue Jay's like girlfriend or wife or something that yeah, American Man
so.
is fucking?
I think that's the idea, that they're supposed to be like Ant-Man and the Wasp, because yeah, American Mando, she goes to shrink and he's like, don't do that. It's like, oh, so not only are you fucking your buddy's wife, but you're boring about it.
Yeah, and you also like, are off put by her cool ability. Like,
yeah,
she could like think you're huge just by like slightly shrinking down.
Or she can go up your butt and like punch your prostate or something.
Well, that seems very specific and oddly something you had just locked and loaded.
Oh, sorry. I've got too many tabs open.
Yes. So, yeah. So it seems like in regards to the story, what happened to Blue Jay was he sent to fucking war, but
Yeah, but yeah, generally what happened to Blue Jay is that he failed to stop the destruction of his own world.
Yeah.
And then he comes to the main DC one.
Yeah. All right, let's leave Facebook and head on over to Twitter.
Twitter.
Who first question comes from it's Irish Bud. No, it's Jake Murphy. Maybe Jake Murphy is Irish Bud.
We are so Irishly sensitive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're so woke when it comes to those fucking potatoes.
I wonder if Irish TikTok is as funny as Scottish TikTok is.
Is Scottish TikTok funny?
Oh my God, it's amazing. I watched one about, it's this guy, he's like, they're working on a roof or something, and the guy in the ground says, don't put your weight, you can't put your weight on it. And the guy's like, how am I supposed to come down? I can't have no put my fucking weight here. I can't put my weight over there. I can't have no do. He's like going on this crazy like things, calling him stupid. He's like, where am I supposed to put my weight? I can't just like float. He's like,
that's very funny.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Jake Murphy asks, I know this isn't that pod, but who wins in a fight? The Retaliators or the Squadron Supreme?
Right. So the Retaliators are from Angor. They're from Earth 8. As the name implies, that's their version of the Avengers. So you get American Crusader, so Captain America. You get Machine Head or Iron Man. The Behemoth for the Hulk. You get Wundajin for Thor. You get Major Max instead of Captain Marvel. There's all sorts of characters in there. Deadeye instead of Hawkeye. So that's the Retaliators. Generally speaking, they all have comparable, similar powers, abilities to their Avengers counterparts in actual Marvel. Squadron Supreme is Marvel's version of the Justice League.
Oh.
So you get, I think it's Hyperion is the Superman. I forget who the Batman is, but you get Power Princess is Wonder Woman. Is it Dr. Spectrum is like the Green Lantern one, like has like light projection sort of things. But basically they are Marvel's Justice League.
Okay.
I've heard conflicting reports about them that they're from maybe the main Marvel universe, or that at one point they were also from like a different Earth. But either way, that's what we're basically asking, a Avengers versus Justice League question, but we're flipping the companies, right? DC's Avengers versus Marvel's Justice League.
Who do you think? I mean, the real question, I guess, is who do you think like treats the other one worse?
Oh, is that what we're talking about, or just who would win if these?
No, it would be, but that's how you get to it, right? Which is like, because I mean,
oh, I see what you're
theoretically, saying. Like both of them are probably like matched in some ways. DC is gods, and Marvel has one god and a couple people who have some abilities. So I mean, theoretically, I would think DC typically would win, but in this situation, it's like what that interpretation of that company is of those characters.
Right. Well, I'll just tell you that both the most recent versions of the Retaliators and the most recent versions of the Squadron Supreme essentially treat them, from what I can tell, basically as being as powerful and competent as they should be.
Okay. Well, then I mean, I would think it's Squadron Supreme.
I think it is too. I know this is supposed to be a trick question, like I'm supposed to side with whatever DC publishes, but I think you got to go with like, no, Squadron Supreme is like the Justice League. They are by far more powerful than the Retaliators are. And actually, even the Retaliators generally, just because of the setup of the Angor story, they always are almost by definition less powerful than the Avengers, just slightly, because they lose.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's always the setup. Angor gets destroyed, Lord Havok comes to our Earth, which means they lose.
Yeah. You can't retaliate if you didn't like lose in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, I'm going with Squadron Supreme.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Braydon, yes, the donkey rises, who asks, how did the American Crusader get killed?
Right. So we'll talk about the most recent version of American Crusader. Normally, they die in the nuclear thing in the past, in like the earlier versions. Most recent version, we meet them during the multiversity, because actually the bulk of the main story of the multiversity takes place on Earth 8 and Earth 7. This big kind of battle for the soul of the multiverse against the Gentry is taking place on the Marvel Earths. And I think like poetically, that's meant to say like, this isn't, I'm not just talking about DC, I'm talking about comics here. We're going to have characters from all over show up on this Earth, and we're talking about a thing that like the meta fiction of it is about the comics industry.
Yeah.
So we meet them in the multiversity number 1 and number 2. And American Crusader is actually a big part of that. He's a big part of rallying the team. He helps them fight the Gentry and all this kind of stuff. And then we learn later, after those events, after the events of the multiversity, when Lord Havok comes to Earth in that Justice League of America series, we get a flashback, and essentially it's a big battle, but Lord Havok gets American Crusader and snaps his neck and takes his shield. And later, Batman ends up with the Crusader's shield for a bit. And Lord Havok has a line or something that's like, the last guy that held that shield didn't fare too well or whatever. And Batman has some sort of version of a come get some bitch kind of moment sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's not like he doesn't die like in the Civil War thing, like he would die in Marvel or anything like that. It's Lord Havok snaps his neck at the end of this battle. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question comes from Colin J. Co-Video 19.
Uh-oh.
Co-Video. I've been looking through my tabs.
Co-Video. Oh, step video. No.
Colin J asks, what Marvel stories would you want to canonically take place in Angor? A version of the Clone Saga? Civil War 2? Ultimatum?
Right. So let's ignore we can't bring up the first Civil War, because that's sort of what they're referencing in that Lord Havok and the Retaliators number 1.
Yeah.
Is that did happen. But both of us don't necessarily have a ton of Marvel knowledge, but if you have to pick like an iconic story or something that you'd want to see, like what is DC's take of Marvel's story, or what's one where like maybe they tweak the story a bit? What's one that you might want to see?
I mean, I kind of want to just see Carnage, because I want to see like Venom and like that whole thing in.
I mean, they would obviously, his name in DC would be like Mayhem, right?
Yeah.
You'd call him Mayhem or something.
Yeah. But I would just love to see that in DC. I think just to introduce like that whole thing would be really cool.
Like the idea of symbiotes and stuff.
Yeah,
that's a fun idea. I like that one a lot.
You start heading towards like Blackest Night a bit in some ways potentially, but I do. I like it.
Yeah, right. I wonder, I think I'd want to see something with the G-Men or the Geno-Men, which is like the version of X-Men. So maybe like a Dark Phoenix or or Age of Apocalypse, or like one of the big ones of the X-Men stories, but make it for the G-Men of Angor. That might be kind of interesting.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that would be cool.
Then you could get Dr. Diehard in there. That's at least a character we've already established from that Earth, and you can get in there with them and keep going.
Yeah.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that the Angor version of Cyclops is called Unit Orb.
Jesus Christ. What a fucking like fuck you to Cyclops.
Unit Orb.
That's so shitty. I mean, Cyclops sucks already. That's such a fuck.
But yeah, you'd get him. You'd get Tracer, like the Sabretooth. You got Dr. Diehard in there. I'm trying to think if there
is that what Tracer is Sabretooth?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, sometimes
guess,
it's kind of amorphous, but I think generally he's meant to be Sabretooth.
Yeah, because I was like, it's not Wolverine, but it like especially because there's like he's attached to like the villain world and stuff. So like, yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't even especially when he fucking like eats a dude in this.
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay, hang on. I just wanted to see if I could find names of other G-men just to see if I could figure out who they were. Okay, Night Troller.
Instead of Night Crawler, seriously?
Yeah, Wind Rider, but I'm not sure.
Instead of Wave Rider or Silver Surfer?
But that's not an X-Men. I'm not sure. There's not too many that actually have names, so it might be kind of a
Silver Surfer
idea,
is like super attached to X-Men, so
isn't he? I thought it was Fantastic Four because he's the Herald of Galactus.
Right.
And stuff,
you're right. Yeah.
But I think either way, that's clearly one where they haven't actually explored it that much because usually they're focused on like sort of Avenger-y type characters. So you could actually like. If you were writing that story, you would be the one to like introduce like the DC version of a bunch of these characters, come up with their names, what do their costumes look like. Like, I think you could have a lot of fun doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, next question. Looking here, and yeah, you used Greg like 4 times yesterday. I'm gonna have to charge you a Greg fine. When you were done with Greg, you didn't actually like park him in the right spot. I was gonna have to charge you a Greg fine.
I was gonna say it didn't sound like you were that excited for the question. I guess because it's only Greg fine.
Yeah. No, Greg the Great is not coming to the table here. This is just Greg fine. Who asks, do we really need a pastiche of Iron Man when Luthor already exists as DC's Tony Stark? But I mean, Luthor is the bad guy, so I don't know if it's a direct. Luthor is closer to what's Sam Rockwell's character in Iron Man?
Justin Hammer?
Yeah, I mean, not.
I mean, God, what a step down for Luthor.
Yes, not a direct thing, but like a bad guy genius.
I know what you're saying, though. Yeah, a bad industrialist. Yeah. I know what Greg is saying here in terms of, guy, billionaire, lots of tech, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I don't think I view them as the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, Batman and Green Arrow on paper are very much the same. And if you look at their Golden Age adventures, they're almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
But we've differentiated those characters now to the point where Green Arrow and Batman, even though they topically share things like being rich, using gadgets, etc., training with martial artists, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Now they occupy different spaces. And I think the same thing is true of Machine Head and Luthor. I mean, first of all, Machine Head basically never shows up on the main DC Earth just on his own ever.
Yeah.
Usually he's already dead because Angor's been destroyed. But the current Machine Head is a member of Justice Incarnate, which is the Multiverse Justice League. So he's on that team with like President Superman and Captain Carrot and Mary Marvel of Earth 5 and Aquawoman of Earth 11. Machine Head is on that team. So on that team, he's the tech guy. He's like they're having Mr. Terrific or Batman or something like that in there. So he actually does have a role, and it's independent of a sphere where Luthor exists of any consequence, So I don't see it as an issue. And even if they met in the same room, I think at the very least, if they're doing their job of pastiching Tony Stark, the personalities set them apart enough that it doesn't matter if like we're both rich and have war suits kind of thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Fair.
That's my feelings about it, at least.
Nice. All right, let's leave Twitter and head on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them. I forgot that bit. Oh God.
What? What?
I forgot to do that. Yeah, at the end.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. I'll We can do this episode tomorrow. It's fine.
And then we forget to, and then we just release half an episode.
Yeah, that sounds us. Yeah. That seems like a thing I would do. God, I released an episode of Ghostfacers that we recorded like 6 months ago this Monday. And I was like, I don't even know. Like, did somebody go to the bathroom halfway? I'm not going to listen through this to figure it out.
I love that you were worried about it and still did nothing.
Roll the dice with this one and see what flies, baby.
Yeah, that's true. That was a weird one. Yeah, we recorded that like way.
It was like 5 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
I know. All right. First question from Instagram from the most interesting resident.
Delgado Andrew.
Yeah. You fucking know. Don't pretend like you're thinking about it, like looking up.
Let me guess.
Playing coy. I don't know.
I'll never tell.
Yeah. Riding, here he comes riding his horse through the desert. Delgado Andrew.
Delgado.
Ha! Whoa, Delgado. Wasn't Delgado what's the ancient city?
That's El Dorado.
Oh yeah.
Didn't I try and make an El Delgado joke one time and I just fucking tripped over it?
Yeah.
That one died on the vine, I think.
Yeah. Andrew Delgado asks if pre-Flashpoint Earth 8 was supposed to represent how Marvel was darker and grittier than DC during Civil War, what would a full-length Earth 8 story be now in light of stuff like the MCU and modern Marvel?
And again, it's not that Marvel comics up to that point were like joyless things to read. That's not true. They had fun, wacky adventures and space aliens and silly things, and Spider-Man's always quipping and stuff like that. So that wasn't the piece they were criticizing. It was more the idea that like the guiding principle, we've talked about this lots, of the companies is different. DC was always like, we are making myth. We're talking about like the Olympians. We're making gods, even of people that are mortal, like Batman. We are making gods, though. This is our pantheon. And in Marvel, they were like, no, someone gets a power, but they still have to pay their rent. They've got like, it was about like living in that world. So a little less of the hero's journey in that sort of like Aristotelian sense, and more like the like, what if a guy who could see through walls also had a job as a barista, kind of like that was the thing. And so because of that, Marvel stories did tend to be a little bit more about the interpersonal conflicts, a little less about the big philosophical ideas. And I think the point of Angor was always to point out that because it was always interpersonal, it was always like this bickering thing or like the drama, like that sort of thing. I think that's what they were always riffing on. Now, that being said, the MCU doesn't not have some of those things in there, but certainly pre some of these Disney Plus shows, I would argue that it was pretty sanitized out. Like a lot of that real kind of interpersonal turmoil that Marvel characters have. You know, these Disney Plus shows, I think maybe give a little bit more space for some of that stuff, you know, but generally a lot of the stuff has been washed out. And then compare that to where DC was going with the movies, where they were like, they crack jokes in that movie. We should have Batman shoot a guy in the face. They're like, it's hard if you haven't been reading the comics or you aren't a comic collector or something. It's hard to look at those and imagine a scenario where DC is making fun of Marvel for being too serious.
Yeah.
So what would you think of do you think you can still get away with making Earth 8 Angor, or do you think you just have to make it just like Earth 8? Do you think it can still be that thing, or has our perception been changed so much by the movies and stuff like that that we kind of have to adjust what the pastiche actually is?
Oh, 100% you would need to adjust it, I think, at this point. Like, though, like, if you wanted to still, like, sort of do this, like, tongue-in-cheek, winky thing at what Marvel is, there's such an opportunity to fucking, like, bring in all the, like, Disney-ishness of Marvel now, and this sort of, like, clean gloss over it all, and the, like, there's so much, it's so rich with things to sort of, like, poke at, that it makes no sense to not do that. If anything, like, it's surprising that there isn't like a new sort of version of it that is sort of teasing it the way it is now.
I think you're onto something too, which is like, I think you leave Earth 8 more or less the way it is. Every time a new writer takes it on, there's tweaks to it anyway, but you more or less leave that. Earth 7 was, when last we saw it, completely and utterly destroyed.
Well, there you go. So,
that was the essential universe or the ultimate universe.
There you go.
And so that one's gone.
Bring it back.
Might be back now.
Yeah.
That one might be back. But also, it's an omniverse now. There are literally infinite Earths. Just make like an Earth 8B or something. Yeah. And that one could be like the pastiche of like the MCU. Like maybe they go there and Green Lantern's flying around in space, and then he's just like, where the fuck is that music coming from? And the Guardians like kind of fly through. Like you could even riff meta on like the way those movies are done.
Well, the fact that the the president of like Angor is like a cartoon mouse or something, right? Like,
I mean, if you wanted to go that pointed, you totally could. But I do think there's like an opportunity there. It's a thing that sort of bugs me. Both DC and Marvel have fucked this up, where the whole point of having a multiverse is that it's all out there.
Yeah.
So it bugged me. I know it ended up being like a misdirect, but in Far From Home, Mysterio says that this Earth is Earth 616, and I'm from a different one or whatever. And he's lying, but he's still making something up. But he shouldn't. 616 should be the comics. It's the MCU. Give it any other number. Call it, we are on Earth 274, and then everyone goes, fuck, Earth 274 is the MCU. Yeah. And then if you're a writer in the comics, you go like, are we going to send someone to Earth 274? And DC fucks this up too, where it's like the Flash TV show, they go like, this is Earth 1. It's like, no, fuck you. Like Earth 1 is a thing. Pick any goddamn number. Now we have like, you could say like, oh, there's more than one multiverse. They each number themselves. Like, fine. But like, if you're trying to bring people in and that, just make it real easy. Earth 0 in any medium. If they say Earth 0, they're talking about the main continuity of DC Comics.
Yeah.
Even at DC, they should just make Earth 616 Marvel.
Yeah.
Like they can have these pastiche Earths, Earth 7 and 8, where they can use the characters because there's no licensing issues. But like they should just acknowledge, because JLA Avengers and stories like that happened, Earth 616 is Marvel.
That would be great.
Should just call it that. Like, that's a thing that is like, that's one of my weird kind of private pet peeves about some of these stories. But I think that all of that to say, I would love to see an Earth, not necessarily Earth 8, get the MCU treatment.
Yeah.
And likewise, let's get the DCEU Earth where it's like, sorry, you guys fought until your moms had the same name.
Yeah.
like just have some fucking fun with it. Ambush Bug can go there and be like, you guys could solve this problem a lot earlier if you just talked. Like,
that's very funny. I mean, that's like what Teen Titans Go would be in that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. That's totally like the sort of the level of irreverence I would be aiming for.
Yeah.
Completely.
I just love the idea of Mickey Mouse being like, ho, Batman, I'm going to kick your ass. Like,
I'm going to have to ask you to kill him execution style.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Have you seen that guy on TikTok who does the scary Mickey Mouse?
with the Mickey Mouse puppet?
No, this guy has the like Negan bat, but then wears the Mickey Mouse hat and like a leather jacket.
Oh no, the one I've seen is a guy that has this Mickey Mouse puppet, and then he does like reaction videos. So someone will be like mixing something, and he'll be like, "Oh, that looks really good," and they'll throw some weird ingredient in it. He'll be like, "Oh my god, fuck me!" Like, but he does it all with the Mickey Mouse puppet.
That's very funny. No, this guy's more of like it's like combining Negan and Mickey Mouse, and it's basically just like
Jesus.
Yeah, it's just it's like, oh, I heard you were stealing my videos. Like,
oh no,
it's really. I'll send it to you. It's very good.
Please.
All right, next question comes from Robbie's Just This Guy, who asks, Marvel had the Squadron Supreme, and the character Hyperion has made a bunch of appearances. Would any of the characters or teams from Earth 7 and 8 be able to pull off their own series?
Yeah, I mean, so Lord Havok and the Extremists got its own series because they were doing this sort of multiverse hopping thing during Countdown on the way to Final Crisis. So they were going Earth to Earth and picking things up, and then this kind of spun out because they were established characters people knew from a different Earth. Technically speaking, of course, almost any of those teams could hold down a series, but the question is, what story do you want to tell that requires you to go to your characters that are blatant ripoffs of existing characters? Why do you need to tell that story? Why must it be them? And like at that point, like, can you get away with it?
Yes.
And you could easily answer yes to all of those and but I have a hard time picturing what it is. Like the question we got earlier about like what Marvel stories would you like to be canonically true in, that's as quick as a reference, right? Machine Head says something and you go like, oh, if that happened, then this must have happened. They must have had a version of Original Sin happen on that Earth, right? But to actually sit down and be like, we have put out like an 8-issue story, and instead of using the rich tapestry of hundreds of DC characters, we wrote an Avengers story. Like, you need such a specific good reason, and I don't know that I know what it is. You know?
Yeah. I think it would have to be something along the lines of like them becoming self-aware of the like other version of them, and that they're sort of knockoffs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe like to do something kind of meta.
Yeah.
That might be kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, all of I keep saying pastiche, and I'm saying that because I'm sure that legally that's what they like to call them too. But like, these are real characters. I mean, we don't see them a ton, mind you, but they have actual motivations, and they have actual, like, it's not like they show up and they go like, stupid Marvel.
I mean, it does feel like that in the book you got me to read.
Fine. But like the more recent versions of them, they're real characters, you know. I want to learn about them. There's clearly like a lot of animosity between Lord Havok and Frank Future, who's like the version of Mr. Fantastic and stuff like that. But it's like, again, their own series is tricky. I think they work best when you bring them in as part of a multiverse thing. If you're Earth hopping, you better stop there. I want you to stop there, and I want to see a new character I haven't seen before. So, you know, you give me Stunt Master, who's like the version of Daredevil or something like that. Like, I love seeing that when they go Earth hopping. I think that's a ton of fun. And they technically could hold down their own series. My question would just be why.
Yeah. Fair. All right. Next question from Brody01, referencing the photo from your Ask Dr. DC post that you had made. Right. They ask, this looks similar to the Avengers. Was there any relation making them? Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just me being bad at putting the questions in an order other than just where I got them.
Yeah.
This really should have been the first question. They are deliberately meant to be like the Avengers. Again, they're riffing on those characters. So there are
have they
more or
acknowledged
less
it
direct
though?
analogs.
Has DC like specifically acknowledged that?
I mean, they you mean like come out and said like, yes, that's who they are?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how they would say anything otherwise. They're not subtle. Like,
No. But I just, I'd be curious to know like what their perspective of these characters are, because they still use some of them, like maybe not as like a actual story.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, I'll give you, but Marvel uses Squadron Supreme, you know, like they're in there. You know what? Actually, just to quickly go back to the last question, Marvel puts out a Squadron, or at least did put out a Squadron Supreme series. I'd be curious to know what that was about, because they went to the trouble of making a Justice League story, clearly. Yeah. I'd be interested to see, because that might be the answer to the last question a little bit.
Totally.
But, so here's an example. So we've talked about it before, but in the multiverse, the events of each Earth also are recorded in the comic books that are read on other Earths. So if you're on Earth 33, our Earth, we're reading about Earth 0. On Earth 0, they might be reading about Earth 5. So they're like, yeah, I've got this comic. That's great. And then they're reading about Earth 5. They talk about DC Comics in these things because DC owns the rights to that. They don't own the rights to Marvel. So that comic publisher is referred to as Major Comics. So if you're reading about the events of Earth 7 or Earth 8, it's Major Comics. They talk about this thing called the Essential Genocide crossover, which was like the destruction of Earth 7, the destruction of the Essential Universe or the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
And that was published by Major Comics. And then there's a character on Earth 8 called Major Max, who's meant to be Captain Marvel, even down to the fact that they have the name of the publisher in the name of the character. Like,
wow.
These things they're not subtle at all. Like, I think everyone knows. I don't think DC would deny it either, but I also don't know that there was ever an occasion where they were like, hey guys, look what we fucking did to Marvel. Like,
I think I figured out how you make a story.
Okay.
So one, we have to move forward with doing the MCU version. I think that's the key, right? So make the MCU version. And I in a universe where we're all very aware of multiverses, and I would, I'm going to take another step and say that like the general public is also potentially aware of these.
Oh, look, you are doing so well. This is literally a thing that is starting to happen in Infinite Frontier. The general public knows about the multiverse now.
So the next step is we're starting to get media from other universes. We're actually getting maybe like TV shows. We're finding out what's going on there.
We're setting up like transmission or like reception of those things. Right?
Exactly. So the like Earth 0 or whatever the like current continuity of like maybe even like a DC EU like version or something like that, like whatever the current sort of general continuity universe is, those that the general public there finds out about the MCU like group, and they're like, oh, like the Retaliators, like these guys are like really quippy and fun and like you guys should,
we like them better than our heroes.
And so it becomes this whole sort of like conversation about like, should you have to be more like why is Batman so like broody and like negative, and like why are these like these gods when like over there they're just like hanging out eating falafels and like hanging.
Yeah, right. I think you're right. I think like the meta angle is the easiest way in and maybe the most fun way in.
But also if like DC shits on itself a bit, like sort of propping up Marvel, I think that's the fun way to do it. That makes me want to read it.
Well, exactly. And I think this is why something like the multiversity works. Like we're taking, we get the Justice Incarnate, we're getting different versions of Superman or whatever. We're going to these other Earths, but like, who are some of the primary characters that help out? Machine Head. We get Thunderer from Earth 7, who's like a version of Thor. Like big kind of moments for American Crusader. They're fighting to save Earth 8. Like they're fighting to save Marvel. Like it is not taking a shit on it. It's
exactly.
Like, this is the battleground, and we're all in this together, and we're going to fight alongside these amazing other heroes, and we're going to do our thing.
Oh my God. Teen Titans Go to the Movies 3 with Retaliators.
Oh. Right. They go to Earth 8. So that you could just do a full Marvel knockoff with those characters. Yeah.
That's the thing I want to see. That's it. That's the movie.
Yeah. I would love to see a joke in there where you just play the like similar moments from the MCU, but they just have to be slightly knockoff so that you don't have to pay the royalties. So he's just like, I'm Machine Head, and it's like Machine Head. Just like
Bing bong.
A royalty-free version of Iron Man song, please.
Or there's like a version of the like Spider-Man kiss scene, except for that he like comes down and it's like his butt, and she like has to kiss his butt. That feels like a Teen Titans Go thing.
I mean, that's very much a Teen Titans Go sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, that works too.
Yeah, I think we figured this out. DC, we're waiting for our checks. I mean, we're ready to write this today.
Good Lord.
All right, let's leave Instagram and head on over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
That's right. The only question we got there from Diaper Gal Kate.
Uh-oh.
I feel seen, and I'm into it.
Sign up for the Patreon.
That's right.
Just it's eat gist and then shit timber.
Diaper Boy Reed's coming for you. Diaper Gal Kate asks, "Who is Blue Guy? Who is the Blue Guy?"
Right. So I think this was also just in reference to the image that I put up. So the image I put up is a picture of the Retaliators, and it's a picture that is from the Multiversity Guidebook. So it's the versions of them from Earth 8 from just pre-Infinite Frontier. So it's relatively up to date and recent. And in that image, there's this giant blue baby, basically, with like an even bigger head, but it's like a baby. It kind of has like the diaper kind of thing going on too.
All right,
and
I'm listening.
That's the behemoth. That's their version of the Hulk.
Oh, I thought that was the big green guy. I didn't realize.
No. So the big blue guy is the Hulk, or essentially the Hulk. It's the behemoth. But what's funny is that he turns into a baby. He gets angry and then throws a tantrum and turns into this giant blue, super strong baby. Which is
who's that green guy though? I saw from the comic then.
Yeah, I mean, again, now that comic is pre-Flashpoint, which means it's also a slightly different version. Like designs are different and some stuff like that. It's possible that may have been still a version of that or a version of Abomination or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, that's who the blue guy is.
Good to know. Let's leave Reddit and head on over to the Discord.
Ooh.
Go.
Can I interest you in Discord all of the time? A little bit of Discord all of the time. Everything is Discord and we're doing just fine.
Nice. Put your fucking Discord out of your seat. Discord on me. Discord on me.
Oh, I love that Bo Burnham special so much.
It's very good. All right, first question comes from the other Ryan, who asks, what is the best Lord Havok comic in your opinion? Is he even a character worth getting excited for?
I think he is. I think with Lord Havok, you got to go either the sort of most recent version, which was the Steve Orlando, I think it's Ivan Rice, Justice League of America series. They do a whole arc. I think the opening arc of that book is against the extremists. So that's the team that has like Batman, Black Canary, Vixen, Lobo, Killer Frost, the Atom, the Ray, and they go up against the extremists. And that's a really good arc and a really good Lord Havok story. I think you either have to go that way or you've got to go right back to what is it, Justice League Europe, number 13 or 15 or something like that. You go back to that one. I think this middle era, the thing I made Richard read, is probably the worst one.
Oh, is it? So
yeah.
bad.
I mean, it's cool that they gave them like a spin-off series and stuff, but I don't think it's the best writing. I don't think it's the best iteration. Like, I think you either go back to the first time they show up, which was, late 80s or 90s or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you go to like the most recent one. Those two have like actual motivation. You get some backstory about Angor, some good stuff in there. If you're just looking for a cool appearance, then the Multiversity #1 is great because he has the lightning axe of Windajin, and he has the cosmic egg and the Omni gauntlets.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a cool like appearance of Lord Havok there. But if you're looking for an actual story, I think that's where you got to go.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Bruno, who asks, you have to come up with a crossover between the Squadron Supreme and the Retaliators. What is the plot, and who do you pick as a creative team?
I mean, the plot could even be similar to the thing that Richard was pitching about the MCU, DCEU kind of thing a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing for the crossover like that, you take something like JLA Avengers, put like the greatest heroes from both Earths together to save both universes.
Yeah.
This is like the lower tier. Like, it would be interesting if there was just like an annoying menace, but not necessarily like or it develops into a full threat, but they don't think it is. Squadron Supreme's like, we'll deal with it. The Retaliators on their Earth, they're like, we're dealing with it. But then they end up there, and then I think I would want this to actually be a cross-company crossover where then eventually the Retaliators and the Avengers have to meet up, and the Squadron Supreme and the Justice League have to meet up. Like a full cast crossover kind of thing. Like, I think I want, like 4 teams somehow set up in there. I mean, creative team, I guess maybe like you get like Donny Cates. I think Donny Cates has been angling to do like, I feel like he's the one who's been doing lots of references to DC or things. Isn't it the Donny Cates Thor that makes reference to like the Justice League or something like that? And I think, and Donny Cates, that's crossover too, I think, right? So maybe for get Donny Cates in there. Do you have like an artist that you'd want to see render this like big crossover?
You know who I want? Let's take somebody who does a lot of like Marvel stuff, maybe. Like Mike Allred, I think.
Oh yeah. Allred's great.
I think like his sort of like poppy, like clean line thing. I mean, it's definitely something I like anyways, but I feel like is a nice sort of combination and a good like balance to that writer.
Totally. And Allred's done stuff at DC too. So yeah. If in terms of like someone both companies like working with or something like that.
Yeah. But I think he's more known for his like Fantastic Four stuff, right? And
yeah. And I guess like that, and like Madman and stuff like that too. Like the indie stuff. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. All right, I think we answered that. Let's go to the next question from Dan Dunn. We've only just Dan Dunn. Who asks, can you talk about some of the satire layered in the pastiche characters and their stories, like Behemoth being a giant baby?
Yeah, I mean, that one is pretty funny. Like the idea that like this person, they can't get their anger under control, that you're literally just calling them a big baby, is very funny to me. I do enjoy that. I don't know though that like a bunch of the other characters have something like that's like a funny dig that way. I mean, in the case of the book that I made you read, Americommando is just like, he's kind of like the worst. I actually had to look it up. I was like, I wonder if I got it wrong and he's meant to be a version of like US agent. Like,
oh wow.
Because he's such a dirtbag that I was like, he can't be Cap.
Yeah.
But he is. So I mean, you're definitely saying something about like, I guess that military soldier, like superheroes that work for the government sort of thing. Not that DC doesn't have those, but I guess they're saying something there. But it's a lot less like fun than the Behemoth thing. Trying to think. I guess like Silver Sorceress, she sort of has to reckon with like being sort of guilt-ridden over like the destruction of her world and kind of doing the wrong thing and then kind of realizing it and having to do the right thing again. I think you could make the argument that beyond just the name and appearance, there's some Scarlet Witchiness to her actual character.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can reasonably make that argument. A thing that I like that I don't think is like a pastiche or a critique is that the versions of Thor are based on like Australian Aborigine, like
that's cool as hell.
Gods or folklore or whatever. Both the Thunderer from Earth 7 and the
Thunderer from Down Under.
Thunderer from Down Under.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Wundajin from Earth 8. They both have Thunderer has a lightning spear and Wundajin has a lightning axe, but they're both meant to be like Australian Aborigine
cool.
characters, I'm pretty sure, which is neat. And I like that I like at least the comment that it's like there are more pantheons than the ones we go to. Like it's a thing I wish like main DC and Marvel did more.
We've talked about that.
So it's a thing that I appreciate about the Retaliators, at least, because that's always been the case. I'm pretty sure, even back to that, like their first appearance, I'm pretty sure that's always been in there, which is pretty dope. But yeah, I think really the Behemoth is the only one that really feels like
satire,
like an outward satire kind of jab. The rest of them are like relative, like playing it pretty straight. Like again, it's not pastiche is the wrong word, I think, because like,
there's some satire.
Lobo is a pastiche of Wolverine and characters like that.
Yeah.
But like Machine Head's not a pastiche of Iron Man. He's just the version of Iron. He's just the version of Iron Man DC doesn't have to pay for. Like,
yeah. There's some satire in the like. There's some potential satire in the way that America Mando is like portrayed. I think potentially, but.
Yeah, and I mean, even like the design of his more recent iteration, American Crusader, he kind of like, he's literally like almost wearing like a Crusader like knight outfit, but then he has the shield. And I think you could say something there about like how maybe you're saying something about the idea of like blindly fighting your holy war kind of thing a little bit. But I don't know that any of those things get fleshed out enough that you could actually call it.
For sure.
That's what it is.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next question from Ryan the Prime, who asks, is there a character you would bring to Prime Earth?
So, Wandjina, which is an older version of Wundajin, or Silver Sorceress or Blue Jay are characters that made it from Angor to Prime Earth and then operated on Prime Earth for a bit.
Yeah.
But outside of them, is even if you don't know the Earth 8 name for them, is there a character that you would like to see just come to the Prime Earth and just become kind of part of DC? Yeah, they start as a Marvel ripoff, but they kind of grow. They could be their own character that's sort of just inspired that way.
Yeah, I mean, Dreamscape is cool, but it's a bit too like, it feels like so many other characters.
The Dream Slayer. Yeah,
Dream Slayer. I like. Tracer's interesting because it's just like a fucking like wild animal essentially, but he's actually like eating people, which is sort of like unlike a lot of characters like that in DC. So maybe that one, I think.
Yeah, Tracer would be interesting because I mean there are characters with tracking ability and stuff like that, but there's not too many characters. I mean, two characters that have like a power that is essentially tracking are both in the Legion of Superheroes in the far future. You know, Timberwolf and Dawnstar.
Oh
Both
yeah.
kind of have versions of a tracking power, different, but essentially that. You've got your animal characters and stuff like that, but having a tracer in there, you're almost, you're kind of almost bringing in that sort of like, this is a different Marvel character, but like a Kraven the Hunter kind of element to it, which I think is really cool. I was actually going to say Dr. Diehard, like the Magneto character. And I think it's partly because DC weirdly just doesn't have very strong magnetism characters. Again, you get Cosmic Boy in the Legion of Superheroes is a good character, but again, he's off in his own corner. And then you get like Dr. Polaris, barely used, it's cool power, but also like Dr. Polaris doesn't have like as good of a backstory as what I would imagine a Magneto analog would have. Yeah. Like Magneto is a character, like if Dr. Polaris became like a good guy, you go like, great, you rehabilitated him, I never need to see him again. But if Dr. Diehard is doing this sort of Black Adam thing of like, I've been wronged, I must defend my people, I have no people, blah, blah, blah. Like
he survived like the Armenian genocide or something.
Well, you know what I mean? Like I think there's something, he's got more character to him than a Dr. Polaris to me, even though Dr. Polaris has been published a bunch by DC. And
I agree with that.
So I think I might be into bringing him in for that.
That's cool as hell. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Next question from Mullet Overlord, who asks, I recently read a Bronze Age JLA story that featured the heroes of Angor. But in that one, they merely came from another planet. Do you know when Angor made the switch from a planet in Guardian space to an Earth in the multiverse?
So when they first show up, it's post-crisis, which means that there was only one Earth because the crisis did away with the infinite Earths. I'm pretty sure the part where they get their own Earth and they become like a parallel Earth is after Infinite Crisis, when the multiverse is restored and we have the 52 parallel Earths again. I'm pretty sure that's the moment, the first time they actually get their own Earth and they get Earth 8. So we're talking mid 2000s basically. Sure, is when that would have happened. And then I'm pretty sure they've been Earth 8 since. And then I don't know if Earth 7 was always a component in there or if that was like a Morrison addition for the Multiversity where they were like, we need a version of the Ultimate Universe as well. So, but certainly Earth 8, that would have been, right after Infinite Crisis, I guess. So that first 20 years or whatever of, or 15 to 20 years of, the Retaliators and the Extremists, and that they were just, Angor was just a different planet. I think in the first adventure, something happens to Angor, Blue Jay and Silver Sorceress and them are on their way to Earth. Something happens on Earth, the JLI or whoever are on their way there, and then they kind of meet partway and they both think the other is responsible, so they fight kind of thing. But they were just another planet. So I think that's when it switched.
Oh, okay. There was a question, I can't remember if it was maybe, you didn't write it down, but I don't know if it was from Bruno or something, but there was a question that someone asked, which is, what is the pastiches of Richard and Dr. DC?
Oh, yeah, that might have been Chris Chan, maybe?
Oh, okay. I think that might be funny to answer.
Sure, yeah. I mean, so keep in mind, we are on yet another Earth. We're on Earth 33.
Yes, I'm going to sort of do like
it's possible that both on the DC Earth and these Marvel Earths, there are versions of us. Yes. We're always normal. We're never super.
We're normal. So I think it'd be funny. I've got one for you.
Okay.
I think yours is Surgeon Washington.
Sorry, is this like a code name or my name is Surgeon Washington?
No, that's like your code name. That's like your like hero name.
Okay.
If you're Dr.
Okay,
DC
gotcha.
here, you're Surgeon Washington. There.
Right. I see where we're going. So is Surgeon Washington like an eminently skilled medical practitioner, but only up to the medical science of 1776?
No, he's a political science major in the United States, but he's very precise about his information.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Right. So I'm doing the Surgeon Washington podcast.
Yeah.
On that earth, and it's political.
Yeah.
The podcast without DC in the title is political.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess you know what? I think you're a porn star, and your name is Cock Paradise.
Wait.
Because you're Dick Eden.
Oh yeah. No.
So yeah, I think you're an adult entertainer.
Yeah.
I think the Patreon for our, like, we talk about politics and that, obviously you got like opinions about sex work and things like that. And then the Patreon is where we put all of your porn.
Not an OnlyFans?
No, I think on that earth it's just Patreon.
Yeah, that's nice.
I think on that earth OnlyFans is only videos of fans.
It's only
like
God,
blowing wind fans.
God, it's such a hot day. I'm going to turn on OnlyFans.
Yeah, it's worth the subscription. Don't. Oh my God, I hope my wife doesn't check my credit card bill. I've got a subscription to OnlyFans.
Yeah, she was
Porn
upset.
is fine, but don't look at those.
Yeah, she was upset enough when she found out that I was watching those like constant fireplace videos.
Yeah. I think what we're really getting at here is that, like, we on this earth, no matter what we do, it's relevant and like topical.
But we're podcasters no matter what.
Yeah, that's immutable.
That's the constant. We can't, like, no matter what, we have to be podcasters.
White men of the multiverse, pod symbol.
Yeah, no matter the changes, white men are always constantly podcasting across the multiverse. That's very funny.
Yeah.
God, we've got so much value.
That's what the crisis is. All of the white men across the multiverse stopped podcasting, and it's throwing off like the axis of rotation of the.
That's amazing. Well, that was the last question. So why don't we get into everyone's favorite game? Can you guess the name of the character based on who someone who does not read comic books can describe that character to us? If you don't know what the game is, I send a photo of a DC character to my wife. She does not read comic books, nor does she care for them. She sends back 4 clues describing what she sees. I read them to the doctor and see if he can guess who we're talking about.
I'm ready, baby.
I'm expecting you to get this pretty quickly.
Oh, no, don't say stuff like that.
Yeah. And if you don't, I'm going to be pretty disappointed.
Oh, no. I'm going to have to go become Surgeon Washington.
That's right. All right. First, has very tiny hands.
Teen Titans Go Robin.
No, that's very funny. She wouldn't know that, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Very funny joke, though. But baby hands. Jesus Christ, I love that.
Tiny hands.
Yeah.
Interesting. Next clue.
Okay. Next clue. Wonder Bread Man.
Wonder Bread Man?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Polka Dot Man?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I was like,
Does he have tiny hands in the picture?
Oh my God, you need to see the picture. I'll send it to you because it's very weird. Really, really tiny hands. Let me see. I'll put it in the chat here because it's
all right. Let's.
There we go. Like my computer. There it is. There, look at this.
Look here. Okay.
Like disproportionately small hands.
Oh yeah, weird. Yeah, that's very, very weird. Yeah.
She didn't even provide 4 clues for this one. She only provided a third clue, which was human twister.
Yeah, okay. I mean, but with those clues, yeah, if I didn't get that, that would have been bad.
This is what I mean. I was like,
Polka Dot Man, he's going to be making this big screen debut in like a month.
With a character who just recently who voiced a Calendar Man in
That's right.
The Long Halloween Part 1.
Yeah.
David, right. What's his last name?
David Desmalchian.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I always want to say Dalmatian, but
I think it's Desmalchian.
Yeah. So cool. But well, that makes me feel good. Thank you for throwing me a fucking softball this week.
I mean, basically, yeah. I was going through the list of characters, and I'm like, Polka Dot Man. This will be fun.
I spent, I would say, an hour and a half last night looking and trying to memorize the pictures of all of the Earth 8 characters I could, because I was like, I don't follow this that much. He's gonna pick like fucking Uniorb or something. I'm gonna have to.
No, because I stopped that because I knew that you do that.
Oh no.
Yeah. No, you're gonna have to wait like 6 months before I pull out a fucking Earth 8 character.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, we'd love to know from you residents. Were you able to get it based on tiny hands?
Yeah, the tiny hands one, if you got it from that, then kudos. Because that's not really like a thing about the character, but
that's
that
a key
image,
fact about this character. Tiny hands.
Everyone knows the Polka Dot Man is tiny.
That's right. Or maybe you want to send us a question for next week's episode.
Next week's episode, we are talking about the 80-year-old character now, Green Arrow.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Doing a whole episode on the Emerald Archer. It's his 80th anniversary this year.
God, have we not done a Green Arrow?
Not a dedicated episode, no. So send your questions about Green Arrow, the Arrow family, those kind of iconic stories. Speedy, AIDS, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, all the like classic Green
homelessness, poverty.
Yeah. You know, why you go to the Green Arrow books.
Yeah. It's going to be a wild romp through the world of landlord-tenant relations. And
yeah, we've failed this podcast.
Oh my God. I mean, you have permission next episode if I don't guess the character to use that line.
Oh, 100% I'm going to do that.
Absolutely. And yes, you can send questions about Arrow as well. Anything Green Arrow related.
So send them to all of our platforms.
Dr. DC Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, at Dr. DC on Twitter, r/Dr_DC on Reddit. We've got a website, drdcpodcast.com or .ca. You can email us, drdcpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you can call us. Send us a voicemail question, 208-917-3238. That's 208-917-DCEU if you're nasty. If you are nasty.
Yeah, much like people who are nasty, they ask, are you nasty?
I am nasty. Thank you.
And if you want to send us some physical mail, we've gotten so much cool shit through the mail. Thank you so much to everyone who's been sending stuff. You can send it to either Richard Eden or Reed Vanier at 301 Hogue Street. That's Hoge Street. Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada, Y1A 1V8. Loving getting all that stuff. Maybe we'll do an episode about all the stuff that we got soon.
Yeah, well, I think definitely on the Patreon we should.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did I just mention the Patreon?
Oh,
Patreon.com/Dr. DC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. All of them get you access to the Discord, our awesome Discord community. It's a ton of fun there. And at the higher tiers, you get bonus episodes. There's videos. There's theme polls. There's all sorts of fun stuff. It helps to support us.
It's transitions like that. It's the reason why we're podcasters in every universe.
Yes, that's why we are the thin thread that's holding the omniverse together.
That's right.
There's that whole section in death metal where the Batman Who Laughs has to go after podcasters to stop. He's like, if I'm going to destabilize this multiverse, I better go after the podcast.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Lipson crisis. It's going to be great. And if you want more comedy gold like this, we have a whole other podcast on the main feed. It's Ghostfacers, a supernatural rewatch podcast. Every single week, we capture and review and discuss a new episode.
One cast member of Supernatural.
Yeah. Every single week, we talk about one of all of the episodes of Supernatural. We go through in order. We're going to do it for the next fucking 7 years of our lives.
That is such a complicated way to describe that. Every week, we talk about an episode. We do it in order.
Well, we're not just... There's other Supernatural podcasts that sort of jump around and talk about different ones. We're going in order.
Really? Why would you do that?
I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying it's a thing that started.
Oh,
Maybe one of those podcasts started around the same time as us.
Oh, well then, touche. Sorry. Great job, everybody.
Yeah. Why would you do that terrible thing? Oh, no, you do that. No, it's a great idea. Actually, I was going to do that, but you did it at first. So.
Yeah, we're starting season 3, though.
Yeah, which means you know what that means.
It's a short season, A.
Yeah.
It also means Kyle Clark will be coming
That's
back.
right, baby.
Yeah. For our season premiere, Kyle bombs in, only watches the season premiere of the series, and then bombs
such a good
again.
bit. Such a good bit. I'm so happy with that. And besides that is it for this week.
Adios.
Ciao, ciao.
They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure. They are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.